You know that classic advice we've all heard a million times? Go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job, and you'll be set for life. But what if that advice is not just outdated, but actually dangerous? What if it's the very thing keeping you stuck? Today, we're going to unpack the big ideas from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that blew the lid off these traditional beliefs. So let's start with that big, provocative question. Is this advice just old-fashioned, or is it actually bad advice? Well, Kiyosaki argues it's terrible advice for the world we live in now. I mean, let's be real. Job security isn't what it used to be, and pensions are pretty much a thing of the past for most of us. This forces us to question the entire foundation of the financial education we grew up with. And following these old rules doesn't just hold you back. The book argues it leads most people straight into a lifelong financial trap. He gives this trap a name, the rat race, and it probably sounds familiar. You get a job, you start making some money, and what happens? Your spending goes up to match it. You get a bigger apartment, a nicer car, maybe start a family. So you think, I need a raise. You work harder, you get that promotion, but then your taxes go up, your expenses grow again, and you're right back where you started, just with bigger bills. It's this endless loop of working for your boss, for the government, for the bank, basically for everyone but yourself. So how in the world do you escape this? To explain it, Kiyosaki introduces the whole heart of the book, the lessons he learned from his two fathers, who had completely, and I mean completely, opposite views on money. And this is where the core conflict really comes alive. On one side, you have his poor dad, his real father, a super educated guy, who always said, the love of money is the root of all evil. But on the other side was his rich dad, his best friend's father, who never finished 8th grade, who believed the lack of money is the root of all evil. Now, think about it. Which one of those have you heard more in your life? This one single difference in how they saw the world shaped literally everything they did with their money. And you can see this difference in the simple phrases they used every day. Poor Dad's go-to line was, I can't afford it. It's a statement. It's a dead end. It just shuts your brain down. But Rich Dad would never say that. Instead, he would ask a question. How can I afford it? See the difference? That's a starting point. It's a challenge that forces your brain to start looking for solutions. It's basically a workout for your financial mind. And really, it all just boils down to this. Poor Dad's advice was to study hard so you can find a good company to work for. Rich Dad's advice, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. One path is about becoming a part of the machine. The other is about owning the whole machine. So, okay, how do you actually break out of that employee mindset? Well, that brings us to Rich Dad's first and probably his most famous lesson. The rich don't work for money. Money works for them. This is the core of it all. See, most people are driven by two emotions, fear and desire. The fear of not paying bills makes them get a job. Then the desire for nicer things makes them want more money. They get stuck in this pattern. The rich, on the other hand, learn to flip that script. And the story of how Kiyosaki learned this is pretty amazing. So picture this. As a 9-year-old kid, Kiyosaki gets a job with Rich Dad for a measly 10 cents an hour. And of course, he gets really angry, feeling totally ripped off. But Rich Dad used this to teach him a lesson, saying, this is life pushing you around. Then came the real test. To truly learn the lesson, Rich Dad made him work for free. Yep, for nothing. This completely removed the paycheck motivation and forced his brain to stop thinking about a salary and start seeing real opportunities. And that's when they had their breakthrough. They noticed a local store was just throwing away old comic books. So they asked if they could have them, set up a little comic book library in an empty room, and charged other kids 10 cents to come in and read them. All of a sudden, they had a business that was making the money even when they weren't physically there. That was a light bulb moment. They weren't working for money anymore. Their money was finally working for them. Okay, so once you've kind of tackled the emotional side of money, that whole fear and desire thing, you need the actual know-how. This brings us to the second and, you could argue, the most important lesson in the entire book, understanding the simple difference between an asset and a liability. Rich Dad said, this is literally the only rule you need to know to become rich. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets. It sounds so simple, right? But he argued that most people go through their whole lives and never really grasp how powerful this one rule is. So what's an asset? The book's definition is just genius in its simplicity. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. That's it. It's something that generates income for you. Think of things like rental properties that bring in rent checks, stocks that pay dividends, or royalties from a book. It's basically like owning a little money-making machine.
And a liability? Well, it's the exact opposite. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. These are the money drainers in your life. Your mortgage, your car loans, your credit card debt. They constantly demand money from you.
And here's where the book really starts to shake things up and gets controversial. Kiyosaki says the single biggest financial mistake people make is buying liabilities that they think are assets. And what's his number one example? Your house. According to his very strict definition, since your home takes money out of your pocket every single month for the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and repairs, it isn't an asset. It's a liability.
So when you really get this difference, you can start to see how money actually moves through your life. Your cash flow, it tells a story. And the real question is, what story is your money telling right now?
For most people, the story looks something like this. The income comes in from their job, and it flows immediately right back out to pay for taxes, the mortgage, a car payment, credit cards, all the daily expenses. Now look closely. See what's missing here. There's nothing left over to go into building a real asset column. This right here is the blueprint of the rat race, visually. But now, let's look at the story of the rich. It's a completely different game. Their main focus isn't their paycheck. It's building their asset column. Those assets, like businesses, rental properties, stock portfolios, they generate income. And what do they do with that income? They use it to buy even more assets. This creates this incredible self-fueling cycle of wealth. This is what it looks like when your money is truly working for you. So that really just leaves us with the one big question the whole book is built around. If you were to sit down and map out your own cash flow right now, what story would it tell? Is it the story of someone running faster and faster in the rat race? Or is it the story of someone building a path to financial freedom? Because according to Kiyosaki, the answer has very little to do with how much you earn and everything to do with what you choose to buy with it.